I've read about these places in Oleg Slobodchikov's book Chicken Da, about herb collectors. In the Soviet time, there was an organization, Lekrosprom, responsible for collecting plant raw materials from the population. Slobodchikov was the editor of the Almaty literary magazine called Prostor. But one day he got his backpack and left for a small lake in the Kungei Alatau mountains. They say he had lived there for a whole year. Lake Mazhi is located in the upper reaches of the Great Urukti River, originating in the Chon Urukti Glacier within the main catchment of the Kungei Ridge. The lake formed in 1911 as a result of powerful tectonic impact that caused numerous collapses and landslides throughout the Kungei Alatau system. The Northern Tian Shan is still seismically active. Its current appearance has formed under the influence of subsurface rock movements. The earthquake of 1887 with a magnitude of about 8 points had destroyed the town of Verny almost completely. Whereas the destroyed settlement was rebuilt a few years later, the gorges of the Kungei Alatau still keep the traces of that catastrophe. The impacts of earthquakes on glaciers were first described by Professor Ivan Mushkatov of the Mountain Institute. He headed an expedition that lasted several years and was the first one to do a detailed description of the glacier cover in the Northern Tian Shan. He likewise discovered several deposits of hard coal as well as manganese, silver and copper-lead ores. He entered the history of science by proving the fallacy of the then-dominant theory of the volcanic origin of the Tian Shan. Semyonov-Tanshansky was the first to propose the hypothesis of the Tian Shan's tectonic origin, and Mushkatov provided the corresponding scientific evidence. In the second half of the 20th century, the tectonic origin of Lake Mazhi on the Great Urukti River was confirmed by the researchers of the Geography Institute of the Academy of Sciences of the Kazakh SSR. As a child, I was raving about all kinds of Fenimore Coopers, adventures, traveling, and read a lot of thematic books. Reading about the Cordilleras with no hope of getting there was one thing. Another thing was reading our Almaty writers describing our local mountains, which are so close, but we still know very little about them. Maxim Dmitrievich Zverev wrote a lot about the Chilik and the Kungei Alatau. The books of Maxim Zverev, the People's Writer and the twice winner of the State Prize of Kazakhstan, were published in the UK, France, Spain, Germany, Cuba and other countries of the world. Their lion's share was dedicated to the nature of the Northern Tian Shan, especially the Chilik Basin. If the readers of distant countries were buying those books, it means that they were interested in the nature of Almaty region. It might be that the statement that human desires are coming true on the shore of this lake was just a metaphor. In any case, the desires of Oleg Slobodchikov did come true here. He became a member of the Writers' Union, an eminent culture worker. I was hoping to get to this lake of happiness all my life. The characters of Chicken Da were usually people of not so simple fate. They lived in the mountains in huts and harvested medicinal herbs all day long. They earned good money and their life could appear quite romantic to onlookers. Yet in fact, a regular urban resident would be fed up with this romance in less than a week. Chicken Da is the popular name for common ephedra. Some researchers believe that this plant was used to prepare the kaoma, the legendary drink considered sacred among the Central Asian peoples in the Iron Age. Archaeologist Aman Umarkodjiev has made several historical documentaries about the Saka culture. What is this kaoma drink and what did they make it from? Let's ask our friend archaeologist. Kaoma is a mystery. Nobody knows exactly how they prepared this drink. Yet there is an opinion that they brewed it from the common or joint fir ephedra, as it is also called. There are two descriptions of the kaoma's properties. According to the first one, it was a ritual drink and was used for various rites by priests and clergymen. They believed that they could connect to deities by drinking it. The second hypothesis says that soldiers would drink kaoma before battles, and that it made them strong, fearless, resilient, and even immortal. According to Denkard, a Zoroastrian essay, warriors were given kaoma before engaging in combat. Zoroastrianism is one of the oldest religions in the world that originated in the 6th century BC and spread across much of Iran and Turan. Multiple ancient sources indeed refer to kaoma. Herodotus, the father of history, wrote about it the first, and the Saka kaomavags who made this drink for ritual purposes. Kaoma or soma is also mentioned many times in the Vedic texts. However, nobody has ever described its recipe. During an expedition to Iran, we learned that in some Iranian dialects, local ephedra species are called koms, which sounds very similar to kaoma, don't you think? Maybe these two words are of similar etymology. In his epic poem, the Shahnameh, the Persian poet Firdausi described the cultural, military and dynastic connections between Persia and Turan that had apparently existed since the Bronze Age. The Iranians used the word Turan to denote the lands east of the Caspian Sea inhabited by nomads who called themselves the Saka. There is a small town called Arsakia in the suburbs of Tehran, which translates as the White Saka. We got interested and decided to dig deeper. It turned out that the town is very ancient and was founded by the Saka who were in the military service to a local ruler. Moreover, it turned out that those Saka had carried out a military coup and had ruled Persia for 28 years. It's possible that they were the ones who had brought the cult of kaoma to Persia. Years, centuries and millennia fly by. Cults and political systems change, but the nature has been here forever. Where the ancient Saka used to gather plants for their legendary drink, and the characters of Slobodchikov's stories used to harvest raw herbs for the Soviet medicine industry, today there is a national nature park. Nature, landscapes, animal and plant kingdoms represent the binding thread we have received from our ancestors and must pass on to the future generations. Whereas 30 years ago nobody was engaged in ecotourism in the village of Sati, today the number of guest houses and yurt-styled cafes is growing every year. The national park is stimulating the development of local tourism quite well. The locals rent out horses and organize horseback tours. Balzhan Baltasheva is an artist. When she heard about Lake Maji, she got inspired immediately. Yet the question was how to get there. Balzhan is heading to the National Parks Administration because in order to get to this specially protected area, one needs to get a permit from the tourism department. Welcome. What can I help you with? I heard about a lake of incredible beauty somewhere in the area. That's right. We have lakes Kolsai and Kaindi. Which of them do you want to go to? I was to Lake Kolsai once. I'm in a different lake. The Kolsai Kolderi National Park got its name from the famous system of 3 Kolsai lakes, described by Simonov Tenchansky, which have become popular tourist attractions. The lower lake can be reached by car as it is located at the altitude of 1800 meters above sea level. Sometimes they mistakenly call it the first. In fact, it is the third in the sequence because the counting should be done starting with the highest water body. The second lake, called Minjilgi, is located at the altitude of 2252 meters ASL, and you can get there only on foot or on horseback. Upper Kolsai Lake is located in the Alpine Belt, already at the altitude of 2850 meters. The first 2 lakes are inhabited by trout. Close to the village of Sati, there's yet another popular tourist site, Lake Kaindi, that also appeared due to an earthquake. At the narrow gorge point, a rock collapsed and the river flooded the spruce forest. You can still see the dry trunks of the Tian Shan spruce towering above the lake mirror. I've heard many legends about this lake. They say people's desires come true there. I want to draw its painting. You probably mean Lake Majikol. It's difficult to get there. I'm not afraid of hardships. Okay, let me show you the route on the map. You can get to the Majikol checkpoint from the village of Sati by car. Another 6 kilometers on foot or by horse. Adil Khan Batanov, the park's deputy director, has a lot of interesting stories about animals in stock. Previously, they thought that only 2 to 3 snow leopards lived here. Since the establishment of the national park and as a result of direct cooperation with the Institute of Zoology, we have been able to identify 16 of them on the park's premises. The number of snow leopards is an accurate indicator of the population of hoofed animals. If the leopards are reproducing, it means that they have enough food. This proves that there are enough of alpine ibexes, morals, boars, roe deer and other animals. There are especially many of these animals around Lake Maji. Majikol was formed by natural forces. But the local belief is that the dreams of these who reach the lake will come true. In the national park, you can purchase a one-off license to catch trout. Baljan, although she had never fished before, decided to try her luck. Live it up. It's quite cost-effective. In the store, 1 kilogram of trout costs 3,000 tenge, and here I paid only 500. The weather makes adjustments to the travelers' strategic plans. It started raining and we are forced to put up our tents. Since we still have to wait for good weather, why not spending the time fishing? Going on this trip, I thoroughly prepared and read all the literature about the place that I could find. Everything you need to know about trout fishing you can find in the stories on the Big River 1 and 2. It turned out that trout fishing isn't as simple as it might have seemed in the beginning. Theory and real life are two totally different things. It's tangling. Indeed, it's better to call a professional for help. Our driver, Uncle Vitya, is an experienced fisherman. Uncle Vitya, I've already lost 3 hooks. I just cannot do it. What am I doing wrong? Lova Levitin, the youngest expedition member, is also struggling with the task because experience comes over the years. If he doesn't lose his spirit, someday he'll become as good as Uncle Vitya. The fishing line is catching on the bushes all the time and the fish is not biting. Patience is the first fisherman's commandment. In addition to rainbow trout, the Jibek River is known for another 3 aboriginal fish species, scaleless osman and 2 other tiny fish, plain stone loach and Tibetan loach. The rainbow trout was introduced into the river in 1966. Then a flood flooded the nursery ponds of the Bantagai experimental farm, and in a few years the trout spread in the area via the Jibek tributaries. This valuable fish had acclimatized quite well, although environmentalists are not sure that it's good for the aboriginal ichthyofauna. In fact, trout catching technology is very simple. You need to find a pool close to the current, which we call buchalo. The fish is swimming there in calm water and detects everything that the stream carries along from its ambush. I felt a bite in one of the cutoffs. Trout fishing is like hunting. You need to sneak to the pool with a long 6-meter fishing rod to get lucky. If you persistently strive for your goals, sooner or later success will come, even in such an unpredictable business as fishing. Wow, I got it! If the fish is not biting well, the excess energy can be used for berry picking. It's a more reliable way to get yourself a dinner. Let's stop fishing and collect some raspberry. You can also take pictures of butterflies. The Apollo butterfly makes a great trophy for any photo hunter. These large, beautiful butterflies are listed in the Red Book. To turn into such a beauty, the butterfly, like Cinderella, needs to pass several wonderful transformations. From egg to caterpillar, from caterpillar to nymph, and from nymph to an adult individual. The bright red spots on its wings protect it from enemies. Due to them, predators take them for poisonous insects. The Eurasian red squirrel doesn't surprise anyone. You can even encounter them in the center of Almaty. Yet they were introduced into the Tian Shan only in the 60s of the last century from the Altai. At sunset, a female roe deer with 3 cubs comes out from the forest to the drop wart opening. Roe deer reach puberty in the 2nd year of their life. As a rule, they bring twins or even triplets. So if there are no poachers, they reproduce very quickly. Fires can be organized only in specially designated places and only using dry branches as firewood. The sunken log will do. In general, our day was rather successful. We caught 1 fish and collected a whole bowl of raspberry. The next day the weather improves and the outdoor KZ team continues their expedition. We are now climbing to the Bota Moynak Pass. It's called Bota, or baby camel in Kazakh, because its shape resembles the camel's hump. The bridge looks weak, but it can hold cars and even heavy SUVs. We are heading to the upper reaches of the Jibek River. To our left, there's the Kungei Ridge, and to our right is the Kungei Alatau. From Kazakh, Kungei means the sunny side, but the name is justified only if you look at it from the side of Lake Issyk-Kul. From the Jibek Valley, on the contrary, the slopes of the Kungei Alatau on the right river bank are open to the sun, while the Kungei stays in the shade most of the year. That's why its slopes are overgrown with thick spruce woods. Coniferous trees love humidity and shade. Usually the water in the river is transparent, but starting from late June until the end of August, when glaciers are actively melting, its violent streams carry sand and clay slush, giving the water its milk coffee color. The Jibek River is born in the glaciers of the Jibek mountain hub, the largest glaciation region of the modern Northern Tian Shan. Geographically, it is located near Almaty, but in fact it is one of the most difficult to reach and sparsely populated corners of Kazakhstan. The mountain road is becoming increasingly difficult, and soon it will disappear altogether. The road is no highway, that's for sure. The cliff on the right and the mountain abyss on the left. In summer, rock falls destroy it, and in winter it gives in to avalanches. Yet maybe exactly thanks to difficult access, the upper Jibek has preserved its pristine beauty and animal world. We are in the Urukti natural limit. There are a hunter's checkpoint and a gas house nearby built in the 90s, even before the creation of the national park. Here at the Urukti checkpoint, the road ends, and we will have to walk further. Lake Maji is 7 kilometers away. We come across an artifact of the past era, the frame of the ZIL 131 truck. It was used for filming the Wild East movie. It was a nice action movie. This is everything that was left of it. The road follows the Jibek for a couple of kilometers. There's a wooden bridge a little above the confluence of the Jibek and the Great Urukti. We will use it to get to the left side of the river. It takes us some time to locate it. Finally, here it is. This is where the Urukti River flows into the Jibek. The water in the Jibek is turbid and almost white, while in the Urukti it's nice and transparent. The water in the river is high. This time the outdoor KZ team crossed the river over the bridge, but we will need to get over it several more times, which might be quite risky. We are in the Great Urukti Valley. In the Emerald Lake Maji, the Lake of Happiness is hiding somewhere in its upper reaches. The Chon Urukti Glacier is located above it, feeding the river with a lot of water. Too much, in fact. The National Park's Guard Service has built an inspector's checkpoint near the Chilik, where they can rest during the raids. After the checkpoint, the horse trail stretches up for about a mile and suddenly disappears, covered with land and mudslides. They say that somewhere up in the mountains on the plateau, another horse trail leads to the lake, but we can't get there from here. The riverbed has overgrown with thick shrubs. In some places, they are simply impassable. The climate in the mountains is sharp continental. During the day, it's hot in the sun and quite cold in the shade. At the altitude above 2,500 meters, the temperature may fall below zero and it might even snow. When the day comes, the snow melts and things get much better. On the one hand, difficult access is a challenge, and on the other hand, it's an excellent protection of wildlife from excessive human attention. In the Great Urukti Valley, there are plenty of morels, alpine ibexes, boars, bears, and of course snow leopards. There are dozens of tracks on the ground, yet the animals are nowhere to be seen. During the day, they hide in forest thickets and come to open meadows only in twilight. To see them, one needs to keep quiet, no talking or moving. The riverbed is getting narrow. It enters the rocky canyon and begins to wind from one coast to another. Walking on steep river cliffs is dangerous, so we decide to cross the river, although the water level is quite high.
Если нужно срочно переправиться через
If you need to urgently cross a rough river, you can put your belongings into a hydro pack, which will save your stuff from getting wet and will serve you as a life jacket. In the sport hiking mode, with a small camera, crossing the river is rather easy, but it's a totally different matter with our expensive filming equipment. It's my fault actually. I was here the last time about 5 years ago, and it was in September. Then we crossed the river without any problems. We just had to take off our shoes. Now it's very hot and the glaciers are melting. So much water in the river. The Chilik is full up to the rim. I've never seen it like that. On the other hand, the glaciers are melting, generating a lot of water. Yet if the trend continues, what will happen to them in say 20 to 30 years? Over the past 50 years, the ice cover of the Northern Tian Shan has decreased by 30%. The increased mountain river discharge has been feeding the Balkhash Alakol basin, where about 5 million people live. If the glaciers continue to melt at the same rate, in 100 years they will disappear completely. What will our descendants face? We simply have to get to this lake this time, as another chance might not come. When I came here the first time, it was also very hard. We didn't know the trail, but when we reached it, I felt so happy. For maybe an hour or two. The Outdoor KZ team decides to return to the base camp. We'll try reaching the lake with the filming gear and the drawing easel next time when the water level in the river drops. If reaching the Lake of Happiness was easy, then everyone could become happy at any time. We consider our hike as a reconnaissance mission. Going down is much easier than going up, especially along the familiar trail. I didn't make it to the Lake of Happiness, but I think I realized what happiness is. It's water, a cup of hot coffee or tea, hot food, hot shower, and my favorite sofa at home. Friends, I want to tell you a little secret. The lake fulfills the desires of not only these who were able to reach it, but also of these who honestly tried to reach it and overcome all the hardships. It might even be that the lake will more willingly fulfill the desire of someone who did not reach it, and thus did not scare wild animals there, did not trash the place. So it seems to me that Baljan has deserved the fulfillment of her desire. Whereas for tourists, steep cliffs and violent streams pose a problem, for the wild animals of the Kungei Alatau they are bliss. The Lake of Happiness is a small, fragile paradise for morals, roe deer, bears, ibexes and snow leopards, who have found protection in these rocky ledges of impassable mountains. It's a small wildlife fortress still holding defense against the advancing human civilization.
Ну что такое счастье? Счастье это не предмет. Счастье это состояние.
Well, what is happiness? It's nothing tangible. Happiness is a state that lasts for a very short period of time. For example, a millionaire makes another million and is happy about it for a day or two. Then he wants to earn 10 million or a billion. So happiness is not about getting that million, but the process of achieving one's dream. The harder the process is, the sweeter the result. For us, it was reaching that lake. It was no easy walk in the park, right? So the one who reaches and sees its beauty will become happy, although maybe for only a couple of minutes. When a Stone Age hunter first saw the grand view of the Jibek Valley from the pass, overwhelmed with his feelings, he took out his chipper and chipped out an image on the rock. He wanted to share his emotions with us, his descendants. He couldn't read or write and probably spoke poorly, but he felt that the nature was sacred and worshipped it as a deity.
Недаром люди традиционных культур, люди природы, наделяют
It's not without reason that the peoples of traditional cultures, the peoples of nature, allot natural objects with sacral powers. Someone might take it literally, and I, for example, take any sacral symbols as just symbols. Any concepts, be it religious or mystical, teach people about the good, about honesty, hard work, persistency, resistance and courage. These of us brought up based on these values have better chances of succeeding in their life, for sure. The Outdoor KZ team is returning to the city. Our commitments prevent us from staying longer in the place where everything is impregnated with happiness. Yet our expedition to the Lake of Happiness is not finished. We are definitely coming back here.